Here we call this the dell. We have 7 hobbit holes in here, 2 of which are themed. We have a few hobbit holes throughout the set that actually have little bits and pieces out the front of them that give you an idea of what the hobbits did inside for a living. So we have the beekeeper's home. I'm sure you'll all notice that there is even some real honey, but for those of you with a keen eye and a little challenge that I do like to give everyone, within the dell, so within these 7 hobbit holes, if you look closely you might also find the home that belongs to the Hobbiton village drunk. Little challenge for you. But the little pond right behind you guys, it is actually man-made. Now this was made back in the day for the Lord of the Rings movies. They felt that by adding it right here, made this little area feel like a nice small community. They did a pretty good job. But we actually do call this pond the Frog Pond, and for a very good reason. When they built it, of course, at the time there were also quite a few frogs who thought it would make a nice new home. Now if you guys have heard a frog before, I'm sure you are very aware that they can be very loud. And if you are trying to film a movie around that kind of noise, it's going to be an issue. And it was. They were at the top of the hill at Bag End. Sound gear out, cameras ready to roll, when they realised that the microphones, even from that height, the only thing they could pick up was the croaking of the frogs. So unfortunately they did have to get rid of them, but nobody fear, no frogs were harmed during the making of our films. In the end they were simply just relocated. They were caught, picked up and moved to another part of the farm. But over this side we have a few little fruit trees. Now we call this specific area the Sackville Orchard. Now in The Return of the King, which is the 3rd Lord of the Rings book, Tolkien the author wrote a short sentence about some hobbit children playing underneath of a plum tree in this orchard and making little pyramids out of the stones. Now in this selection of trees that we have here, we do have 3 different kinds. We have 3 apple trees, we have 1 pear tree, and we have 1 quince tree. Which of course means that there is no plum tree here. But of course, totally deliberate. Peter Jackson himself had actually realised that a New Zealand plum tree, it would have been far too big and it would have created the wrong scale for the hobbit children. So they planted some smaller trees instead. Keep in mind, of course, they were smaller about 18 years ago. But they took the apple tree furthest along the path, took off all the leaves, took off all the fruit, and instead they did hand wire on plastic plums and fake leaves. Now if you've seen that film and that doesn't sound terribly familiar, don't worry, I will forgive you just this once. Because while it did make it into that movie, the end result, of course, it was for only 2 seconds. So if you happen to blink a little too long, you probably missed it entirely. It is, however, a perfect example of Peter Jackson's amazing attention to detail, no matter how big or small, to actually try and make Tolkien's ideas and images of Hobbiton come alive. But for now, we'll take a little walk around the dell, so just down around this path right here, and once we're done, I'll meet you behind the tree over there at the Witzer Play Shed.